Thanks very much. Very good morning to you all. We are the new kid on the block. We only listed in June of last year, but it's been a fairly busy time. And one of the questions we always get is, how have you got 2 grams a tonne outcropping at surface in WA, heading for what looks like well over a 1 million ounce resource? How is that possible? No modern mining, no pits. Why is it here? I wish I'd could say we found Lassiter's Reef, but what this is actually a story of consolidation. The area itself has been mined since 1897. It's very well known, but it's been held in this patchwork, checkerboard fashion of a lot of small leases. And over the last few years, we've managed to tie that together into one contiguous package, which we feel is unlocking the development potential of the area. And we'll try, there we go. I should just pause on a disclaimer for Bell & House, who are still here in the audience. They are our lawyer, and we should take these seriously, I've been told, so there we go. So, as I said, listed middle of last year. Since that time, we've drilled 16,000 metres of RC and diamond. We took the resource base from 411,000 ounces to 712,000 ounces at 2.11. But also managed to book in 541,000 ounces of indicated resource. Now we've got 50,000 metres of drilling planned this year. When you compare that to the 16,000 of last year, I think you can see where we're going with news flow and where we hope to take this resource, and certainly we're aiming to break that magic million some stage this year. Now, all of that, it's a nice number to have, but all of that is targeting a resource base that's capable of supporting an operation of at least 100,000 ounces per annum over a minimum of 5 years, so we can afford to build a mill and get up and running in the East Pilbara. We've got a large land holding. We'll take you through that shortly on some of the targets. Very well funded post a recent 10 million capital raise. Strong and experienced board. And as our CFO says, does that mean we're all down the gym every day? No, but I think we do actually have some really good skill sets on the board. We announced earlier this week the appointment of Mark Connolly as our non-executive chair. I think he's a man that needs little introduction, and we see him being pretty instrumental in our financing going forward as we move through to that development stage. The other person I'd like to highlight outside our board, which does have very good project development and financing skills, is Jane Allen, who's in the audience and at our booth today. Jane's a very experienced geologist. Most recently headed up brownfields exploration for AngloGold Ashanti for all of continental Africa. So a very experienced, very well-regarded geologist, and the perfect person for us to see that resource growth through into development. Quickly at our shareholder base, good institutional support from North America, Asia and Australia. There is a large holding there of Keris Resources PLC, that's where the project was vended from. And that's where the performance shares head as well. So we've had a very busy time over the last 6 months, and the next 12 months is going to be equally busy. We've talked about the drill program, we've undertaken further consolidation, and we've announced an initial resource upgrade. For the year ahead, pretty similar. A lot of drilling, 3 times the amount of drilling. At the moment, we've got an RC rig trundling around there. It's a little hot and wet with these cyclones, isn't it? Always the way, first year of listing and the cyclone season hits with a vengeance, but we've got an RC rig. We'll soon be moving into drilling some deeper holes at Klondike, which we'll talk about, and we'll also have a large regional exploration program kicking off. This is all going to culminate in a resource upgrade towards the end of this year, and subject to that resource upgrade and subject to where we see the deposit, there's every intention to start a pre-feas at that point. So where are we? We're just outside Marble Bar. Marble Bar has the wonderful reputation of being the hottest town in Australia. In fact, it holds the hottest heat wave, or longest heat wave in the world, and I did check that out in the Guinness Book of Records. It's 160 days in a row over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And so that's where we drew the inspiration for Calidus. Calidus means hot or fiery in Latin, and we think this is fairly appropriate both literally and figuratively for the project that we have there. Our nearest neighbours are Novo Resources, Beaton's Creek, just over 500,000 ounces. And we've also got Millennium Minerals with their operating Nullagine operation about 70 kilometres away. If we have a quick look at our holding, as I said, we've managed to consolidate the whole greenstone belt. There's over 200 historic workings here. Very limited knowledge about the majority of the package, and all of the resources currently reside in mining permits. But what I want to do is focus in on Klondike, which is where we've been putting all of our attention and where the bulk of the resource lies. So with the geology, we've got a shear zone smashed between a couple of granites. There's multiple shears, but we've been focused on the Klondike and the St George shear. And this is pretty apparent when you have a look at the historic workings. Plethora of them all the way along Klondike in particular, and to a lesser degree, the St George shear. The resource base we announced last year sits in a portion of that, but you can see those workings extend out into the distance, and that's why we're quietly confident that we'll have a very good chance of picking up further mineralisation to the east and west as we drill out this year. The photo on the right shows how outcropping this is. You've got the old workings, you've got a lovely chirp marker, just disappears into the horizon. Even a simple mining engineer like me can follow the geology and work out where the ore body is, and it really is that obvious. So it's a wonderful asset to be able to explore in that regards. If we have a look in long section of Klondike, you can see all the drilling's being concentrated in on that resource. There's a little bit to the east and west, but not a lot. Then when we start to overlay the historic workings out to the west in particular, you can see some very high grades. These are the life of mine average grades of these workings. So that's what gives us confidence that they'll be further afield. And that's why we're starting drilling out to the west in Q2 when things dry out a bit, moving over to the east, targeting that near surface along strike mineral potential. But at the moment, while it's a little bit wet and boggy up there and a little warm, we're targeting a deep drilling beneath one of the high-grade chutes with some co-funded drilling, and hoping to prove here that this is a system that will go deep. This is a system that has a very long mine life. It's just a matter of drilling it. In cross-section, pretty simple, just a vertical ore body, a broad low-grade zone with high-grade zones within it. I think a couple of interesting takeaways here. Topography is generally on our side from a strip ratio point of view, but also when you look at strip ratios in the first year or two of operation, you can see that we can play with the strip ratio. We can get a 1 or 2 to 1 in the initial years, fast payback, really improve those economics. So we're not just doing resource drill outs, we're actually undertaking the full pre-feas metallurgical test work now. Historical work shows 93 to 96% recoveries, but we're now looking at grind size optimisation, gravity recovery, reagent consumption. We started environmental monitoring 12 months ago, flora and fauna studies, discussions with the regulator underway. We've got desktop studies on tails dam positions and styles underway, heritage clearance work underway. All of this in an effort for when we do press a button on the pre-feas, it's really just the engineering, and we can get that done in the shortest period of time. So if we take a step back and look outside Klondike, we do have a large ground holding, multiple targets, but I think what this highlights to me as well is this is the entirety of soils coverage. There really hasn't been a lot of work done in this area. So one of our first things this year is to get out there and rectify that. We've employed a regional exploration manager to manage this side of the work and get out there. And then over the year, we hope to commence some drilling on some of the more prospective targets and see what they host. We have done some very minor drilling out to the west of Klondike around 3 satellite deposits, Fielding's Gully, Coronation and Copenhagen. And if we zoom in on them, Copenhagen, it's a small resource, but it's 6 grams, 36,000 ounces, outcrops at surface, open at depth. Fielding's Gully, very interesting, small resource again, 22,000 ounces. But this shear zone out to the east continues 10 kilometres and collides with the centre of that Klondike resource. Multiple old workings, as you can see along there, never had a soil sample, never been drilled. So we see some regional scale opportunities there. Coronation, we've got one hole in. This is historic drilling. We're about to put the RC rig onto that. Some nice grades at surface and another great target. Marble Bar itself, oh, that's interesting. I don't know what's going on there. Might try going back and see if that fixes. No, all right. There's a picture of the Marble Bar airstrip, which doesn't have quite the Qantas lounge you'd expect, but it's still very functional and bitumen. Marble Bar is actually a wonderful town, great community. We fly into Port Hedland. It's a 2 hours drive out on a bitumen road to Marble Bar. There's 100 beds in town for single quarters, which helps us with exploration and development. The mining registrar's there, police, nurses, so a great little community, and it does have the infamous ironclad at the end of one of those 45-degree days. So where are we going with our exploration? Obviously the focus has to be Klondike. The Klondike extensions, that's where we're going to grow the resource cheaply and quickly. Then we've got those satellite deposits, known satellite deposits, some of the bigger workings, we need to tackle them. And then we move on to, many of these 200 workings, but also the regional soils we believe are going to show us a lot of interesting areas that need to be followed up. Now we are in the Pilbara, and my mother always said don't use the C word in public, but I think we should talk conglomerates briefly. We actually do have a very large outcrop of Mount Roe basalt in the area. We see this as a greenfields project. We monitor what others are up to in the Pilbara. We find it quite exciting, but for us, I'd just like to stress our whole focus is on shear hosted gold. We'll monitor the conglomerates, and hopefully it's successful, and then we actually have a very large ground position to follow up on at a later date. So where do we sit? The majority of our resource, we believe, is open pittable. It's been defined to the indicated only 150 metres depth. And from a grade point of view, we think we're a bit of a standout from an open pit potential, especially when you consider this outcrops and there's no barren pre-strip to undertake at the start. The drill program we're undertaking, we see that bubble shifting to the right, moving well above the 1 million ounce mark. No pressure, Jane, who's in the hall, but we do see that happening, and we see that bubble growing over time with that, which is the market cap. Maybe a more traditional way of looking at this, enterprise value per ounce. Again, I think you need to take into account grade. Yes, we're drilling, we need to add more, we need to get closer to that development stage, and I think we'll see that re-rate to at least average, if not above, as a reflection of our grade. And as we increase those ounces, you would expect the market cap to go up, and again, you'd expect to see us as a whole through share price increasing with that. So why we think we're a wonderful company to invest in, we do have a great high-grade base at the moment that we announced only late last year. We're tripling our drill program in the year ahead, 50,000 metres. We're targeting, in general, that near-resource drill-out, near-surface material that we can rapidly convert, hopefully, into reserves at pre-feas stage. We're undertaking those soils. We're going to get good coverage across our whole tenement area. We'll be looking at further consolidation to really become the centre of mass of the East Pilbara. Our strengthened board has the skills and the ability to raise finance to bring a project into production, and we see ourselves as one of those few independent near-term gold producers that are listed on the ASX. Thank you very much.